All right, today we're diving into something pretty wild, a brand new budget proposal for the UK. But what makes this one so different? Well, it's designed as if a hyper-intelligent AI were calling the shots, using nothing but pure cold logic to re-engineer the entire economy from the ground up.
I mean, just think about that for a second. What if you could strip away all the politics, all the short-term thinking, all the messy human compromises that go into a national budget? What would you be left with? This proposal, which they're calling the Gemini Mandate, is basically an attempt to answer that very question. And it all starts by zeroing in on the single biggest challenge the UK is facing right now.
And believe me, it is a giant problem. This isn't about small tweaks or clever accounting tricks. The entire blueprint, every single policy, is designed to tackle a deep, fundamental crisis brewing in the UK's public finances.
£21 billion. That's the number. That is the size of the structural hole in the UK's finances. And look, this isn't a gap because of some new spending promise. This is way scarier. It's because of a really grim new assessment of the country's entire long-term economic potential.
So, let's break this down. Where on earth does a £21 billion problem even come from? Well, it turns out it's a fiscal crisis that's been building up for years, kind of like a pressure cooker.
And here's what's inside that pressure cooker. It all starts with a major downgrade to the UK's productivity forecast. Now here's the crazy part. For every tiny 0.1% drop in projected growth, the government has to borrow another £7 billion. And with national debt already pushing 100% of GDP, there's just no wiggle room left.
So, faced with this mess, how would an AI solve it? Well, it's not about a few cuts here or a few tax hikes there. No, it operates on a single, incredibly powerful idea, a core doctrine that guides every single decision in the plan.
This right here, this is the Munger Doctrine, and it is the absolute key to understanding the whole thing. The AI's core belief is that big economic problems, like low investment or housing shortage, they aren't just random failures. They are the perfectly predictable results of a badly designed system of incentives. So what do we mean by incentives? They're basically the invisible rewards and penalties that guide our behavior. A tax break is an incentive to invest, right? A high tax on cigarettes is a penalty, a disincentive to smoke. The AI's argument is simple. If you get the incentives right, the good economic outcomes will just happen.
So if you look at it through this AI's purely logical lens, the UK doesn't really have a productivity problem or housing crisis. It has an incentive problem. The system is actually rewarding the wrong things, like sitting on valuable land instead of building on it, or government departments shuffling paper instead of innovating. So the first target is to rewire that whole system, and that starts with tax.
This brings us to the first major pillar of the plan, rewiring the tax system. And we're not just talking about raising or lowering taxes a little bit. This is a fundamental shift in what gets taxed in the first place. And this slide just illustrates the core idea perfectly. Right now, the UK puts heavy taxes on things that can easily move. A skilled worker can decide to work less, or a big company can just decide to invest its money somewhere else. The AI's plan is to flip that completely. Stop taxing the things that can run away and start taxing the things that can't, the physical land of the country and the pollution we create on it.
Now, the absolute cornerstone of this new system is something called a land value tax. And this is crucial. It is not a tax on your house or the building you've put up. It's a tax on the value of the actual patch of ground it sits on. The whole idea is to make it really expensive to hoard valuable, undeveloped land, which creates this powerful incentive to actually build something useful on it. And it would replace a whole trio of taxes: stamp duty, business rates, and council tax.
Now, obviously, a change this massive can't happen overnight. You can't just flip a switch. So the plan lays out a clear, phased approach. Step 1 is immediate. Get rid of stamp duty, which the plan argues just gums up the whole economy. Then you start building the modern data system you need to value all the land, before finally rolling out local trials to test the whole thing out.
So, fixing the tax system is part 1. The next step is all about unlocking investment, and it focuses on the two things that really drive growth in any modern economy: capital and skills.
The budget points out this huge and kind of weird misalignment in the current system. The government gives out really generous tax breaks to companies that buy new robots or fancy computers. That's investing in physical capital. But there's practically nothing for companies that invest in human capital, actually training their staff to be more skilled and productive.
So this blueprint fixes that with two big new incentives. First, it makes something called full expensing permanent. That's the 100% tax deduction for buying machinery. Making it permanent gives businesses the certainty they need to plan for the long term. And second, it creates a brand new human capital tax credit, finally putting investing in people on a level playing field with investing in machines.
Okay, so taxes are rewired and investment is unlocked. The final pillar of this whole plan is the state itself. The goal here is to engineer radical, almost unbelievable efficiency right into the heart of government.
And this chart, wow, this really shows you the mountain they have to climb. For decades, public sector productivity has grown at a snail's pace, just 0.2% a year. But all the current government spending plans are based on it suddenly growing 5 times faster, at 1% every single year. If that leap doesn't happen, the entire budget just falls apart.
So, the AI chancellor's answer isn't to just demand cuts, it's to engineer efficiency. The target is a colossal £45 billion in productivity savings. And the main tool for getting there is, you guessed it, technology.
So how on earth does it deliver those savings? Well, the plan involves using AI to automate all the boring admin work, migrating services online to cut costs, and using clever analytics to predict and stop fraud. But here's the real kicker, the genius incentive part. Departmental funding would get tied directly to hitting AI adoption and efficiency targets. If you don't improve, your budget is at risk. Simple as that.
So, when you put all three of these pillars together, the tax reform, the new investment incentives, and the AI-powered state, what you get is the blueprint for a whole new kind of economic machine. And this table really lays out how that machine is balanced. You've got the land value tax and the public sector AI, which both boost growth and bring in revenue. To balance that out, the new investment tax credits cost money up front, but they're designed to supercharge growth in the long run. You can see how every single part is laser-focused on aligning incentives to get a specific outcome.
And that brings us right back to where we started. The ultimate goal of this incredibly complex, radical machine is to close that £21 billion fiscal hole. But it wants to do it not by making the economic pie smaller through painful cuts, but by engineering a bigger, more productive, and more efficient pie for everyone.
Of course, this is all just a theoretical blueprint, a thought experiment. But it leaves us with a really fascinating and kind of profound question. If we could actually build an economy based purely on cold, rational, logical incentives, would it actually be a better one? Or are there crucial human factors that the logic of an AI just can't compute? That's definitely something to chew on.